Welcome to the Wealthy Speaker Podcast. This is the podcast dedicated to people who want to speak more as a way to build their income and grow their business. Well, welcome everyone to the Wealthy Speaker Show. My name is Jane Atkinson. I'm the author of the Wealthy Speaker 2.0 and the Epic Keynote. You know, I've had several people ask me as a result of our show, where do I find copies of these books? And so you can go over to our bookstore at speakerlauncher.com. Now, the topic of today's show is from podcast to platform, and our special guest expert is Joel Boggess. Welcome, Joel.
Jay, this is going to be so much fun. You know, the Wealthy Speaker is one of my absolute favorite podcasts. I don't miss an episode. So to be invited to be on your show, that's kind of a double dip, super duper a pleasure.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here. I've been on your show a few times, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Now, rather than doing, the standard, let me introduce you, Joel, we're just going to walk through your introduction together because your life is just so fascinating. But things kind of started, there was one thing that happened that was very transformative for you when you were young. Can you tell us about that first?
Sure. And thank you for giving me the opportunity. And thank you for the invitation. Again, no place I'd rather be right now than here with you and the Wealthy Speakers. Well, when I was 5 years old, I was with my dad and some family friends, and we set off on a nature hike in the Texas Hill Country. And as the day kind of stretched on, myself and two older kids kind of drifted away from the pack, and we ended up climbing a small hill. And parallel, Jane, to that hill was what probably looked like a jungle gym to me. And I did what any 5-year-old kid would do. I ran to the top, ran to the middle, and lay face down on my stomach and peered over the edge and called down to the adults who were down below. But this wasn't a set of monkey bars. This was actually a railroad bridge that stretched over a wide gorge. And then there was a rumbling.
Oh my gosh.
On my right side. Now I was laying face down on my stomach, right side. And as the train approached, my dad scrambled as fast as he could up the hill trying to reach his son. But by the time he got there, it was too late. And I had fallen 30 feet to the ground, and my dad raced as fast as he could and knelt down next to me and reached for a pulse, reached and searched and prayed for a pulse. And thankfully he found one. And the result of that fall was 3 skull fractures, a coma, and so much blood loss, Jane, that by the time the rescuers found us, Texas Hill Country, no GPS, no cell
phones, yeah.
42 years ago.
Wow.
By the time they found us, it was all but hopeless. But you know what? They had that never give up perspective, and thank God they didn't give up in their efforts there in the bottom of the ditch, and then also on the 45-minute drive to downtown San Antonio, which is where I would be admitted to Santa Rosa Children's Hospital, where I would spend the next 4 weeks of my life fighting for it in a coma. And by the time I woke up at age 6,
wow,
that's when the journey started for me, and it was a long recovery, and there just are many different points in time when myself, my family, and the people that were trying to help me get back to normalcy were wanting to give up, and thankfully, none of us did.
Wow. Well, as our listeners can tell, our Wealthy Speaker listeners can tell, Never Give Up started for you at a very young age because you had to fight through. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later and how that language has helped kind of lock in something for you in your keynotes. But let's keep going through your bio here. So fast forward a few career and job changes and things like that later. Where did you land?
Sure. Well, when I was a little kid, after the accident, I got a radio. Remember boom boxes, Jane?
Yeah.
Back in the day, I got a boom box when I was about 9-10 years old. It was a Christmas present from my grandparents, and as soon as I turned on that power switch, something was turned on inside me. and when I heard that announcer's voice just radiating from those big black circle speakers, if you remember those, I know I do. It triggered something in me, and that spark of passion became a flame. And as I entered young adulthood and then my college years, that became a torch, and that led me into starting in traditional radio. And my gosh, it's been 28 years since I first sat behind the mic and also got in front of the camera on TV. And that broadcasting bug just it burrowed deep under my skin. And now with podcasting and internet radio and Facebook Live, well, you're a podcaster, Jane. You know, it's just something. Once it gets inside, it's a hard habit to break. And with Relaunch, which is our current show, we are just having a blast doing it. We are at 1.7 million downloads.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a big number for me, so I'm pretty excited about that. And we've done 557 episodes so far. Yours is probably, 2 or 3 of them, and was so much fun.
And I think Joe Calloway probably first introduced me to your show, and he's probably been on several times as well. Hey,
love Joe, one of my longtime mentors, and I learned a lesson from him back in the early days when I was just beginning to build up my platform, if you will, as an author and a content creator, and I've turned to him for guidance. I don't know how many times.
Mm-hmm. So what was the lesson? What was one of the early lessons that you think you got?
Sure. I didn't think I got this like a punch in the face. I asked Joe, what's the best way to ask people to help me? To help me promote my book. Mm-hmm. And influencers. What's the best way to ask people with some pull and a list to help me? People like Joe, people like you, like Bob Berg, and
mm-hmm.
All those names that we know. And I said, get this. This was actually my actual word. I said, Joe, what's the most tactful way to do that? And Joe chuckled and laughed out loud, belly laugh style. And he said, don't be cute, Joel, just be clear. And those words, don't be cute, be clear, ring in my ears.
Yeah. And
it was like yesterday, and it's been years that he's given me that advice. But since then, I have done my best, and I'm no superhero. I make mistakes and flubs along the way. But I do my best, Jane, to be clear in what I need from folks, and mm-hmm. and when I'm asking for help, exactly how they can help me, so that there's no miscommunication in that. And I credit Callaway for giving me those words, because I needed to hear them.
Wow.
And when I did, I took that advice to heart. I did exactly that with my book launch. And that book, the Finding Your Voice book, which is my most recent one, mm-hmm. Ended up becoming #1 on Amazon in success and also in self-esteem. So 2 categories. That was big for me, and I owe it all to our mutual friend Joe.
Nice, really nice. Now, since we're there, how How pivotal do you think books have been on your career? We call them flashpoints, in the Wealthy Speaker. How much have they impacted the flashpoints for you?
I'm definitely familiar with the Wealthy Speaker, the podcast, the book, and the language. So yeah, flashpoints. There is nothing like putting a book in someone's hand, a real book. You can send them all the links in the world, but it's just something about when you put a book in their hand. And when I'm traveling, and thankfully, I'm starting to travel more and more, and starting to dot my calendar with speaking engagements more. And when I'm in the airport, I have three or four copies of my book right there in my bag, because you never know when you're going to sit across from an event planner or just from someone who needs a positive, uplifting word. So I always carry that. And it is, you asked me how pivotal. I think it has been a difference maker in the way that I'm perceived, right or wrong, in the way that potential planners, prospects, and clients see me. So I think it helps me be the expert.
It might even be an inside out job. Writing a book is a huge accomplishment. And once you've actually finished, I think that just builds our confidence tremendously. And also for many people, it gets their ideas clearly down on paper, and now they feel more confident because of the clarity.
Oh, absolutely. And it was a huge confidence builder for me itself. And I owe a lot to that process. And it helped me, make a lot of connections that I may not have been able to make. And it's just been something that's solid. And I know that if a planner is looking at 3 speakers or 4 speakers, and I bring a book to the meeting, which is exactly what I did 2 days ago when I met this person for coffee. I knew he would remember that. He might not remember the conversation or the way I communicated my message to him in a private meeting, but he'll look at that book. And here's a tip for the Wealthy Speaker authors out there: sign your book in front of him.
Nice, very nice.
Yeah, and make sure that he or she sees it. One of the things that I do at my book signings, I have the same message that I put in every book. So I'm never, drawing a blank. Gosh, what do I write? But so I sign that in advance. But when I meet a person face to face, I'll sign, and how do you spell Atkinson?
Right.
Right there in front of the person. And that's a time-saving tip, so that there's a solid message there, but they actually see you either write the entire message if you need to, or at least sign their name. And be sure you have the same pen and the same ink color.
Right. And blue, I think, is better than black.
I've heard that too.
Yeah.
I've heard, and so that's what I use.
I have a special blue pen. So, okay, we've talked a little bit about books, but I want to circle back to the podcast, because that is the name of today's show, from podcast to platform. So let's go back to the early days and some of the hardships that you might have come across in your podcast, or maybe some mistakes that might save other people some of the stress that you might have had and it not taking off the way you wanted it to.
Sure. Okay. So relaunch is not our first show. Matter of fact, if you count up all the shows, Jane, that I've done, that my wife has done, that we've done together, it's actually our 9th show.
Shh! Don't tell anybody.
Well, it's one of those things that it's no big deal to me. But sometimes I say that when I'm speaking to a group, and their jaw will hit the ground. It's like 9th show, and I'm like, well, if you are committed to building your show, writing your book, taking your speaking career to the next level, if you've made that commitment, then you've done something more powerful than just make a decision. You've actually thrown your emotions into the equation. And I think that emotional component of commitment is just a lot stronger than thinking to yourself, yeah, I'll do that. Kind of making a decision. Commitment seems to be that next step. Mm-hmm. And that's exactly what I did when I wanted to get back into broadcasting, only this time from a podcaster's perspective. And there's just been so many lessons that I've learned in that process, but let me be as helpful as I can. I think the number one thing that has helped the relaunch show grow into pretty much a flamethrower for us, or become a flamethrower for us, is that I took personal responsibility mm-hmm. for the growth of my show. And what I mean by that, Jane, and I hope this helps someone, is that I started to realize that it was me who was responsible for people listening to my show. It was me who was responsible for promoting the show. It was me who was responsible for getting the show in the right directories and on the right pages and to the right people. And I've learned that, it's not the guest's responsibility at all. And that right there was a difference maker for me, because in earlier attempts, I would have on, best-selling author A, or, actor B, or presenter C.
Hoping that their audience would get wind of this, and that would expand your platform.
And you know what? Most people do share mm-hmm. with their list or on social or whatever, but some of them don't.
Right.
And you know what? They're under absolutely no obligation to. If they do, it's nice. And I will admit that when Jack Canfield put the podcast that I did with him on his personal Facebook page, I was pretty much giddy with excitement. and I think that was shared off of his page about 500 times last time I checked. So yeah, that was a big boost that I couldn't have pulled off just myself. But you know what? He wasn't under any obligation to do that, but he did. And of course, I'm grateful and very thankful for it. But I didn't count on him doing that.
Right. At the same time, you take 100% responsibility. Now, lots of people start podcasts and say, okay, I'm going to get into this game now. But they don't perhaps commit to it on any kind of regular basis or schedule. That was a real game changer for me. I think it was John Lee Dumas or somebody like that who said, this is the deal. You need to pick what you're going to do and then stick with it. How has that worked for you?
Yeah, well, for sure, that's exactly what you need to do. And it can be any activity that you're willing to commit and invest in. So it could be blogging, it can be podcasting, it can be doing your Facebook Lives, your YouTube, or a combination of several things. But commit to something. And I would recommend, and John and I go way back. He was actually my second podcast coach. Commit to one thing at a time. You can't eat an elephant all at once.
So you're saying don't say, okay, I'm going to start a blog and a podcast at the same time. You're saying pick one, do it, get it going well, and then change it up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Pick a lane, to use Callaway's language.
Right. Yes.
And then you can always, we've all seen road work being done where lanes are expanded, roads are widened. You can absolutely do that, but pick a lane, could be podcasting, and pave that. And it will take you to the promised land, but you've got to stay in that lane until you get to have the hang of it. And it took us 9 shows, frankly.
Now, these we're saying from podcast to platforms. So let's talk about how this actually pays off. I know John Lee Dumas does a certain number of things to make it all run within itself, and that's his revenue generator. Mm-hmm. Do you make money off of your podcast, or are you thinking more end game in terms of the keynotes?
Sure. I'm thinking more end game. Mm-hmm. And let me be completely honest with you, Jane, and also with the wealthy speakers. I had visions of my podcast becoming an ATM machine mm-hmm. and printing $100 bills. And I tried that. I tried to make that work. And you know what? It didn't. I generated a sale here and there, sold a book. A couple of people bought on my affiliate link on Amazon, and they still do. Mm-hmm. But you know what? It just didn't print $100 bills. But what I learned, and this is huge for speakers, what I've learned is that podcasting is the new networking. Mm-hmm. And when I launched my show in 2014, and when I hit my very first top spot in iTunes, the phone rang the very next day. It was one of the event planners for Podcast Movement. And he gave me the opportunity to be on the Podcast Movement stage in its debut year. And he gave me that opportunity about 2-3 weeks before the actual event. So all the speakers were booked. But he found a little bit of space for me to be on that stage because he was impressed with what we did with the podcast, and he knew I could add value. And since then, I spoke 2015 and was paid for it. And then I went to 2016, spoke in Chicago at their event. Wasn't paid for that one, but it was my pleasure to be there and just add value. So that right there has been phenomenal. Just that relationship. And the podcast has helped me get on many other stages as well, not to mention build relationships with people that can then refer me to speak and can do joint venture things with me.
I love it. I love it. And your new presentation is absolutely catching fire. I want everybody to tweet that out, and let's make sure we reference at Joel, Joel, Boggess, Boggess. Podcasting is the new networking. I think that is just fantastic. And I think that people really, when, everybody kind of hops on these trains because everybody else is doing it. And I really love that you're giving people clarity on why they're doing it. This is, there's a real specific purpose for it this way. Okay, so let's talk about Never Give Up. Mm-hmm. NGU. So this has taken on a life of its own. I hope that's what you write when you autograph your books now. This has taken on a life of its own. So what, you got to this place after kind of going out and, just share us the history of your speaking and kind of how getting that clarity was helpful to you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. I felt for a long time that I needed to use my own personal stories and the things that I've been challenged with from the fall to the coma to waking up at 6 to the struggles with my peers, with teachers, with my parents, with authority. I've thought for a long time that those stories need to be shared, not for dramatics sake, but to inspire, empower, and give people hope. And I just, for whatever reason, wasn't at a point, probably in my maturity, where I understood how to do that without making it about me and without making me the hero. And I'm fast forwarding a little bit, but then I went to an NSA meeting, which I highly recommend, attending your local NSA. And the presenter, his name was Dick Brusso.
I know Dick.
And, do you know Dick? Okay.
He's a great guy.
Dick is awesome. I love him because this is where the Never Give Up brand was birthed. And Dick said to the group, he said, if you could only give one more speech in your life, nothing bad's going to happen. You're not going to die or be lost at sea or anything. But if you could only give one more speech in your life to the audience that you would like to speak to, what would you speak on? And I wrote 3 words on my notes. I wrote, never give up. Because that's the story of my life. And from that moment with Dick and probably 100 people in that room, that's when everything started changing. And I've had, a few conversations with you. You've helped me really develop and get some clarity on that message. And then I took that and started talking about it, talking about never give up. Asking people about, gosh, what makes people give up? What makes you give up? Just because I want to not use my words, but their words. Mm-hmm. And I really want to understand at a deep level, the signs, the signals, the symptoms for never giving up. So I can be the solution provider, because, that's what we all are as wealthy speakers, or wealthy speakers in training, is solution providers. And if I can really understand their problem, people that are faced with maybe wanting to give up, if I can understand their problem better than they can, well, hopefully, they will trust me. They will trust in me that, I might have a solution for that.
And I think that the never give up message could be an amazing opening to a conference or closing to a conference. It's going to be a really nice, positive, send people home feeling energized type of message. Or let's lay out the land for something that's really, really positive. And I love that it's so simple, and I think it's really easy for people to share as well. And I hope that if anybody listening in on this podcast today, needs a shot in the arm, why don't we give them a couple of tips for never giving up? Give us a little bit of your framework for that. I know I'm putting you on the spot here.
Sure. Well, I've been going deep into this research. I've been on the phone, been in social media, and what I'm learning and what people are sharing with me is sometimes they give up, or that they want to give up because there's a lack of focus, or if they don't see that their efforts are making a difference, or that their business is making a difference, or their efforts to the business that they either own or work in, are not contributing to a greater good. So I think the number one tip is, look inside yourself and take some time to understand, what do you want to contribute to? Your contribution is the greatest gift that you can give to yourself, to your family, to your clients, and I believe also to God. And when you're in touch with, okay, how do I want to contribute, or how do I see myself making a contribution? I think once you get real with yourself, you don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell, the people around you, but once you get clear and real with yourself, I think that makes a difference right there, because with that passion of what's most important to you and what you want to contribute to, with that comes the energy and, frankly, the courage to, in the heat of battle, to push on,
keep going,
and to not give up. However, if you're not excited or moved by what you're making a contribution to, well, then human nature will distance you from that, and then all of a sudden excuses can start showing up, and reasons for giving less than 110% or 100%. And you know what? That's not against anyone in particular. That's human nature. Mm-hmm. Now, if you got to work the job for now, you got to work the job, right?
Right.
Even if you don't believe in it, you got to do what you got to do. But the tip and the encouragement is moving forward in your never give up lifestyle start to look at those things that you really want to contribute to and make a difference in, and move your vision in your life in that direction. It may not happen overnight, and frankly, it won't. But give yourself the gift of that clarity so that you can move in that direction.
I'm thinking about all kinds of things right now and different clients and situations, and keep your eye on the ball and that whole, why am I doing all of this? What if somebody is really doing it because from a financial standpoint? You think that's enough, or do they have to go deeper into what that actually means to them? I'll give you an example.
Sure.
My motivation, we're comfortable. I could just sit here and go into cruise control if I wanted to. But whenever I go into a turbo boost, it's because I tap into something that's related to my family. So a vision of me taking all the family away on vacation, with all the grandkids and everybody, to me, that's like, ooh, that gets me all supercharged. So, back to the Simon Sinek Start With Why idea. Do you think that really continually revisiting what is the reason behind what I'm doing, this business that I'm trying to create, if you can even hop over yourself and get to the helping of the other people, what's the power in that, do you think, when it comes to never giving up?
Of getting over yourself, or
getting over yourself, or tapping into something for yourself? I mean, it could go either way, I suppose, right?
Sure. And wow, what a very interesting question. So thank you for asking. I think in the end, it's all about how you're making a difference for other people, for the community that you live in, for society, and also for the greater good. And I think that's the biggie right there. And we all have our own vision of what the greater good means. And if it's making a significant contribution to your family, or to a cause, or to a movement, that's what's going to give you spring in your step, so that you can jump over yourself to make that significant contribution to others. Michael Port said, and that was he's one of my very first speaking coaches. I actually helped him create, launch, and produce. Well, I said that out of order. Create, produce, and launch the Steal the Show podcast. Phenomenal podcast, because I produced it. But one of the things he said, not directly to me, but to the group that he was addressing, and I was in that group, he said, "You're never going to be good as a speaker, but all you can do is be helpful." And that resonated with me. And you know this already, but what he was trying to help us understand is, don't focus on yourself and, I got to move my hand this way, and I've got to take a step that way. Don't focus on yourself, but just look into the eyes of your audience and just be helpful, because guess what? The more helpful you are, the better you're going to be seen.
Right.
The better you'll feel about yourself. And that right there at that point in my speaking career was the best advice that I had, because that took the pressure off of, gosh, I've got to get this exactly right, and I've got to land, and I've got to boom with my hand at the same time, and all the pressure.
Maybe what he meant to say was, you're never going to be perfect as a speaker. I think lots of people are good. I think lots of people are great, and there's a handful who are epic. Yep. But I think when you go past that whole thing that you put on yourself, that you have to be this certain thing and be helpful, it's huge. It totally takes the pressure off.
It gave me goose pimples, and when you focus on being helpful, then my gosh, that helps me jump over myself.
Right.
Because it wasn't about me, nor is it about me. This next speech won't be either. None of them are, because I'm there to serve folks, and if I can give them a tip, an idea, or tell a story that stimulates something in them, that gives them the courage to take some action, boy, that's what it's all about.
So, question back to the podcast.
Okay.
Some of the people that you have interviewed, who has been your favorite interview?
Sure. Gosh, there's been so many. The correct answer is Jane Atkinson.
Okay. Beyond that, who would you say? Let's say in the celebrity factor, because you've interviewed lots of interesting celebrities. Who would you say has been your favorite?
Sure. Okay. I'm a faith movie fan. I love faith-based movies, and some of those movies are produced, written, and directed by the Kendrick brothers. There's Facing the Giants, there's Fireproof, there's Courageous, there's War Room. A lot of one titles, I guess. But the Kendrick brothers have been phenomenal, and I've interviewed many of their leading actors. May not recognize these names, but Aaron Bethea was one, Shannon Fields was another one, T.C. Stallings, but actors in the Kendrick brothers movies, I think, from a celebrity standpoint. Also, there have been some athletes that have really shed light on the whole never give up idea. They probably didn't realize it at the time because that wasn't the brand that I was working with, but they just talked about how they showed up, and that's what you have to do. From a thought leader perspective, which are kind of like celebrities, I've already mentioned Canfield, Darren Hardy,
yes,
the former publisher of Success Magazine. Darren, this is the power of podcasting, Jane. Darren spent 45 minutes on the phone with me now, and he probably gets $50,000 or more for a live event.
Yes,
and he showed up. I don't know what his pay scale is, but it's currently a lot more than mine. Currently. But, he showed up for 45 minutes and he gave me the exact same information, in the podcast that he gets paid big bucks.
Wow.
For. And not only did he do that, but he told me, he said, Joel, here's what we're going to do. He said, we're going to take that. We're going to make it part 1 and part 2. That'll give us more bang for the buck. More mileage, and I of course followed his advice, and he, I can't say that we're golf buddies, but he ended up putting my podcast on his Facebook page, which of course was awesome. He was under no obligation to do it, but he, saw someone who believed in what they were doing, had a never give up attitude, or a diligent attitude, and wanted to help out. And that's the power that you'll find in your podcast, is that people just want to help.
That's nice. One of the things that I recognize about your podcast style, it kind of surprised me the very first time you and Pei interviewed me, is that it is very kind of casual conversational. And there are some podcasters who I think are really like boom, 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 let's get her done type of thing. What do you do that consciously? Is it your radio background? It's kind of got a little NPR-esque-ness to it.
Yeah, and I've heard that a lot. I take that as a compliment.
Yes.
That's my style.
Yeah.
And what I've learned, like every speaker learns at some point, and that is, you've got to present in your style. It's great to learn from some of the best in the business. Dumas is one of them. Cliff Ravenscraft is another one. It's good to learn from those folks, but there comes a point in time where you take ownership. And you take the lessons that were valuable, and you make it your own. And that's exactly what I did. In those trips to the batter's box, practice swing 1, 2, 3, and so forth. I think what I was doing was I was trying to be a mirror image of someone else or some other style. I don't think I consciously was doing it. Mm-hmm. And I don't think when we're learning our craft on the stage, I don't think anyone consciously tries to mimic someone else's style. But over time, I realized that, I can just have a conversation, be helpful to my guest, but also to my audience, and ask questions that I want. Let curiosity be your guide in an interview format. And that's what I believe has helped Relaunch just take off like a firecracker for us.
Soar. Well, this started out from podcast to platform, but I sure hope that the people who need that never give up message are also hearing that. This is, Joel's success was not straight out of the chute, Wealthy Speakers. It took some time to get there. And I really think that you probably needed to go through all that so that when you show up on stage today, Joel, you're so authentic.
Well, one of the most powerful points that I make when I'm on the platform is when I say, everything that happened to me, in the end, it happened for me. And it was a gift, the accident, it was a gift, the coma, it was a gift, the struggles that I had with, my mother's abusive boyfriend and all of that ugliness. Sure didn't seem like it at the time, but you know what? It was a gift, and it made me into who I am today. And it's all a gift. Maybe hell in the hallway getting the gift. But and that's a powerful piece, the way I frame that. And then I, of course, turn it on the audience, who are the real stars. And then I ask them, gosh, what are some of the gifts that you have? What are some of the things that may have happened to you, but also may have also happened for you? And that adds another dimension.
So good, Joel. Well, you've been the gift for us for the Wealthy Speaker Show today. And I want to say thank you so much for taking your time and to be with us here today. If people want to be in touch with you, how do they find out about the Relaunch Show, and how do they get in touch with you?
Sure. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about my show. And thank you again for the invitation here. The best thing to do, Jane, is just go to relaunchshow.com/subscribe. relaunchshow.com/subscribe. There you can sample the show on any device, your iPhone, your Android, your tablet. I've got all of the links there to make it happen. And just sample the show. And if it's something that adds inspiration, confidence, hope to you, then put it in your toolbox. And if we need to connect on Facebook or other kinds of social media, then we'll do that. But that's what I recommend for pretty much anyone that you're interested in his or her content. Listen to their show first, or read their blog, or watch their video first, and see if it's a potential fit or a match. And if it is, then you can take those next steps. But that's kind of an easy 5-10 minute way of looking at someone's material and deciding if it's a potential fit before, and then you can invest more time into that. But relaunchshow.com/subscribe, best place to sample the show, and all the other links are there as well. Well, by the way, one more thing. Sorry.
Sure.
Okay. Your interview is at relaunchshow.com/555. Easy peasy number to remember, /555.
Thank you so much. It's we've done several interviews together, and I really appreciate that. And on behalf of the Wealthy Speaker audience, I will say thank you very much. And to sign off, we will say see you soon, Wealthy Speakers. Bye for now, everyone. Thanks again, Joel. Thanks for listening to the Wealthy Speakers Show. Please visit speakerlauncher.com for your free Wealthy Speaker audit, and visit speakerlauncher.com/podcast for show notes and many more resources to help you catapult your speaking business. See you soon, Wealthy Speakers.